Hello everyone, my name is Christina Gibson and I will be conducting the third section of the presentation of higher education in the industrialization era of 1870 to 1944, otherwise known as the time of the university transformation. I will be covering the curriculum and government sections for this era. Much of my information is taken from the Cohen and Keisker book entitled The Shaping of American Higher Education. So, what is curriculum? Curriculum is any set of courses, a summation of the syllabi and activities of students and faculty members functioning in isolated units. Above you see a picture of a secondary school within the Boston Public School District in 1892. While we will be discussing higher education in this presentation, secondary schools and college preparation are a large topic of debate during this time. This is due to the fact that many different factors came into play when deciding upon curriculum and preparing students for college. According to Cohen and Keisker, allowing the faculty to teach what they wanted and the students to take what they wanted became exalted as a measure of freedom. New institutions became the leaders for this era. For example, Cornell began converting knowledge from abstract subject matter into education that students could use for practical interest. It propelled students towards professional careers and expanded occupational groups such as farming, social service, and teaching. There were also vocationalism curriculum passed, such as journalism, business, engineering, forestry, agriculture, social work, and public administration. Junior college programs, which Katie discussed in the first presentation, were seen as careers and skills that were too ill-formed or lacking prestige to be at a university, but could be offered at a junior college. These included radio repair, automotive mechanics, commercial art, and practical nursing. And would this be considered a faculty curriculum transformation, more professors had specialized graduate degrees with new academic disciplines compared to older professors. This allowed for the curriculum and courses to be narrowed and organized into academic departments around 1890. Electives in fine arts became a part of the curriculum and flourished. More students could take specialized classes in art, music, dance, creative writing, film, drama, art history, and they all became very popular, even for men, not just women. Church doctrine segregated into its own specialty so that philosophy and literature had a chance to stand on its own. With students increasing, so did the curriculum, and a unified curriculum was becoming unfeasible as more than just a few thousand students were enrolling in college now. With curriculum changing within college programs, the curriculum in secondary schools needed to change as well. However, aligning curriculum is easier to say than to actually do. In fact, many colleges still struggle with this today. Jean already mentioned admission requirements in her presentation, but it also has a connection to curriculum. For instance, in 1900, Latin was a requirement for admissions into college, but French and German were gradually replacing it. More attention became drawn to public high schools. 41% of students were admitted from public high schools, 40% from preparatory departments from the colleges themselves, and 17% from private preparatory schools. With needing both parties to have an equal playing ground, the National Education Association made the Committee of 10 in 1892. This committee consisted of 5 college presidents, the U.S. Commissioner of Education, 1 college professor, 2 private school headmasters, and 1 public high school principal. They proposed model high school curriculum and recommended courses for each 4 secondary school years. Many high schools didn't like colleges dictating the curriculum, but regardless, the colleges still imposed their expectations on the schools. In 1884, several state universities, Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, and California, all became secondary school accreditation bodies. This was there, upon request, faculty could visit secondary schools to approve curriculum and give accreditation. However, this went away when accreditation associations were formed later in the century. Entrance examinations became popular. The first entrance examination was administered by the colleges and reflected the preferences and specialties of the faculty. This was not ideal, and therefore the College Entrance Examination Board was formed in order to practice applying tests uniformly across institutions in various cities across the country. With curriculum changing and moving away from the core and having more electives, there was more freedom. This freedom allowed students the ability to choose which courses and majors they wanted. Cohen and Keisker state, the concepts of freedom to study and freedom to learn established the rationale for an environment in which everyone could do much more as they pleased. More institutions were offering a variety of courses and that were more specialized and widespan. However, expectations for bachelor's degrees became vague, and the elective system allowed for any course of study to be useful as any other course. Humanist studies remained in larger institutions where vocational studies mostly stayed in junior colleges. The colleges continually claimed that they offered more than just courses and they determined lives. They considered themselves protectors of tradition and molders of character. My other group partners mentioned extracurricular activities during this era, but nonetheless, it affected how curriculum was determined and what the collegiate experience consisted of. Universities today still believe that student affairs play an active role in retaining students. This era valued creative culture and traditions using social affairs, school colors, fight songs, and intramural activities. They found that specialized activities helped a certain career path, especially with women. This is also where traditional black colleges began to form and emulate liberal arts colleges. During the University Transformation era, many things changed in the classroom, including instruction. Classes were growing, such as in 1901, Harvard had 39 classes with over 100 students in them and 14 courses with 200 students in each. Other things changed, such as libraries stayed open later, field trips and discussion groups became more popular than lecture, more laboratory work and scientific field courses, and tutoring groups flourished where older peers helped younger peers. 1920 is when orientation started to become more prevalent and is now a huge landmark in our society of universities today. Standardized examinations to test students' knowledge became apparent as well as grade marks. This is when the grade point average system and credit hours began so students could transfer from institution to institution with ease. It was more uniform than subjective. Radio was a new surge of technology at this time, and universities began to embrace it in the 1920s and actually taught courses through it. The Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching was a large federal grant distributor to institutions that allowed students to attend at lower cost. That set new minimum requirements, with one being bachelor's degrees could only be awarded to four-year programs. The American Council on Education was also formed in 1919, and it set expectations for accreditation for colleges as well. The purpose of these implementations was only to set policies and procedures in place for institutions. However, slowly institutions became less focused on what the students were learning. Carrie will touch on finances later on and how it controls much of how a university runs. Now we will move on to the topic of governance. According to Cohen and Keisker, the governments of higher education became increasingly secular during the University Transformation era. Government structures shifted notably in the direction of administrative hierarchies and bureaucratic management systems. Board of trustees became more prominent. They were appointed by the governor in public colleges and universities. They acted as a buffer between universities and legislators and maintained the budget. Some presidents were autocratic, wanting their hands in all decisions, while others developed more hierarchy systems. Presidents were chosen increasingly for their managerial skills and less for their expertise in specific academic areas. Some presidents had the task of expanding schools to contain professional and graduate schools. This era was known for having the 10 most prominent presidents. They had many skills, and most importantly, they were innovators by having to create new schools with limited budget and faculty. They are not universally loved, but very effective. This era had an abundant amount of hierarchical systems, with everything forming around the office of the president. It was a rise of administration bureaucracies. New departments were created to support the office of the president, such as registrars, administrative officers, physical plant managers, alumni relation directors, and admissions officers. Also, deans presided over the different academic schools. Important decisions still went back to the governing board, and academic departments were more democratic and because they had equal voting rights and rotating department heads. Faculty instilled rank and controlled academics by forming academic senates, and student affairs developed, separating themselves from academic affairs. The first Dean of Women was at the University of Chicago in 1892. The Student Personnel Point of View was published in 1937, and it wanted all departments to work together to help students succeed. When it comes to influence during this era, the accrediting associations such as the Association of American Universities began establishing standards. These external reviews and accreditations depicted degree eligibility, public funding, assessment, faculty tenure, and staff promotion. I've come to an end in my presentation topics, and I will now turn it over to Carrie Bush, who will discuss finances and outcomes of the industrialization era. Hope you enjoyed learning about curriculum and governance of this era.